So welcome back in continuation with Indian planning continued, and in this we are going to do what is known as short-term objective. Well, Indian planning was uh, divided into 5 years. We planned for 5 years, not very long, not very short. So every 5 year plan beginning 1951 had some important objective on the basis of the needs of the time. So every 5 year plan, we see that there has been a change in the objective, the short term objectives as they are, because they were based on the need of the time of that particular period of time. So, and another thing that I would like to share is that every plan began, the period began from 1st April, and the 5th year it ended on 31st March. So every plan period, whichever, like if it is 51 to 56, now what will that be? Yes, 1st April 1951 to where? 31st March 1956. So just go through this. We have earmarked the year and the objectives basically, and based on that we're going to discuss, are going to talk. Now let's take the plan period. Like for example, the first plan was April 1st 1951 to 31st March 1956. So what was the principal objective, or what was the short term objective? Basically it was to increase agricultural production. That was a short term goal. Second plan, that is April 1 1956 to March 31st 1961, it was increase in industrial production. And the third plan, that was April 1 1961 to March 31st 1966, it was, say, generation of employment opportunities and of course self-sufficiency in food grain production. And then we had these 3 annual plans, that is 1966 to 1969. So again, what are these annual plans? Like you will see that in the normal sequence of 5 years, we were disturbed thrice. Planning didn't take place because the country was at war with Pakistan. So it had to divert its development expenditure to urgently required defense needs. And some of the foreign countries, mainly USA, turned hostile to us and stopped their economic aid for our planning. So the resource position became unclear. So we were left with no option but to give up planning for a period of 3 years. So during these 3 years, that is 1st April 66 to 31st March 1969, we had 3 annual plans, and this is known as a plan holiday. So after the 3 plans, you will see that the 4th plan is, we have the 4th plan, April 1st 1969 to March 31st 1974, and in this it was to bring about price stability, that is inflation, to control that. 5th plan, it was Garibi Hatao, Garibi Hatao. That means to raise the living standards of the people, and the focus was on the weaker sections. Then the 6th plan, it was to develop infrastructure and of course reduction of inequality. And the 7th plan, generation of employment opportunities and also increase in agricultural productivity, as you say. So the 5th plan, which was started on 1st April 74, was terminated on 31st March 1978, a year before schedule, by the then Janta government, which came to power in 1977. This new government initiated work on the 6th 5-year plan to cover the period 1979 to 83. But the government could not finalize it because it lost power to Congress I. So the Congress government came to power in 1980 and it formulated its own sixth five-year plan, beginning 1st April 1980 and ending on 31st March 1985. And the sixth plan had, as we've already said, development of infrastructure. Then we had seventh plan, seventh five-year plan. It was generation of employment opportunities and increase in agricultural productivity. So in after that we've had two annual plans. So that is from 1990 to 1992. This was due to the political instability which was found then. So that's why we could only make it start only on 1st April 1992 to cover the period 92 to 97. So that was basically the two annual plans from 1990 to 92. Sorry, I didn't turn the page on time. So you can see for yourself. And in this, when we are talking, then we come to the eighth plan. Eighth plan was universalization of elementary education specifically. You can see that. And the ninth plan, it was rural development and checking the growth of population. They started taking care that there was overpopulation, and whatever little progress was being made could not be really shown because of the rising population explosion. That's it. 10th plan was talking about inclusive growth and better health and educational facilities. They were focusing on improving the quality of life through better health and education. And in 11th plan, there were a lot of targets, multiple targets, and in that they also talked about protection of environment, climate change. That also resonated with us because it was a topic of hot discussion all over the world. And the 12th plan, it was more on inclusive growth, sustainable development. So we talked about all this in the planning. So the short-term goals, as you see, keep changing from time to time. And you must have realized, and you just go through this period and you'll find that they reflect the five-year plan period, reflect the problems, the economic problems of their times, if you see the objectives. And based on that, the objectives kept changing. So we'll come back with long-term objectives in the next